Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Let's Talk English channel. I'm Lily. That exact phrase is the starting point for our journey today.
It really sets the scene right out of the gate, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. I am so glad you could join us today because we are looking at something completely universal yet deeply personal.
Yeah, we have a really fascinating source document on the table today.
We do. It is a transcript from an English language learning channel called Let's Talk English.
And, on the surface, the text initially reads like a friendly, straightforward conversation between two colleagues.
Right.
But underneath that casual surface, there is a highly structured framework at play, one that is designed specifically for language acquisition.
That actually brings us right to the mission for today's deep dive, which is twofold.
Hmm.
First, we are going to explore the vastly different daily habits of the two characters in this transcript, Tom and Lily,
They're essentially polar opposites.
completely, in how they manage their time, their energy, their work.
Right. And the second part of our mission is uncovering how their relatable everyday routines are used as a really clever pedagogical tool.
Yes, the whole conversation is engineered to teach beginners, specifically at the A1 to A2 level.
Teaching them how to master the simple present tense.
Exactly.
For our listeners who might not be familiar with the official language learning frameworks, A1 and A2 represent the absolute beginner stages.
The survival stage.
Yeah, exactly. The survival stage of acquiring a new language. You are literally just learning to name the world around you.
And the simple present tense, which means statements like I eat, I walk, I sleep, that is the very first tool you get in your survival kit.
It is. It's the tense we use to describe permanent states, daily routines, and frequent habits.
I want you, the listener, to think about your own morning today for just a second.
Did you hit snooze?
Did you make a cup of coffee? Have you ever considered that the mundane act of describing your breakfast or, explaining your commute to work is actually the ultimate foundation for learning any new language?
Because that is exactly what we are going to explore today.
It makes perfect sense when you consider cognitive load, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
A beginner's brain is working overtime just to process basic vocabulary.
Right.
If a textbook gives them a complex science fiction story, they might fail to grasp the grammar entirely because the context is just too alien.
Too much to process at once.
But if you give them a morning routine, their brain already knows the plot.
They know how a morning works.
Right. They just have to map the new English words onto their existing daily habit.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the contrast between Tom and Lily starts the very second the sun comes up.
The classic alarm clock divide.
Exactly. The transcript introduces us to Tom's morning first, and he openly admits that his day begins painfully.
He is absolutely not a morning person.
No, he is not.
Yeah.
His alarm rings at 7 a.m., but he plays a dangerous 30-minute game of chicken with his snooze button.
We've all been there.
He hits it at 7:10, then again at 7:20, and finally drags himself out of bed at 7:30 a.m.
From a psychological standpoint, Tom is starting his day with a series of tiny procrastinations.
Just delaying the inevitable.
Yeah. But look at what is happening from a pedagogical perspective. This is a masterful way to teach beginners the concept of time and repetition.
Because of the intervals.
Right. The source material uses his struggle to naturally repeat numbers and time-telling verbs in a highly realistic scenario.
The listener hears the intervals of time passing without feeling like they are sitting through a robotic textbook drill.
It feels like a story.
The text then pivots to Lily, who represents the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
She is the ultimate early bird.
Wakes up at 6:60 a.m. sharp. And the most striking detail, she does not even use an alarm clock.
Which is wild to me.
She tells Tom that her body just knows.
What's fascinating here is the immediate difference in their physical environment and their actions.
As soon as Lily wakes up, the very first thing she does is open her window for fresh air.
Then she makes her bed.
She specifically views bed making as a crucial discipline.
A psychological victory right out of the gate. She notes that starting with this small act of order sets a productive tone for the entire day.
And Tom's reaction to that is quite funny. He admits his blanket just stays in a mess until he goes back to sleep at night.
Complete opposites.
The contrast continues right into how they fuel up for the day. Lily goes to the kitchen and drinks a large glass of sour lemon water,
She says she does it to intentionally wake up her stomach.
followed by 10 minutes of simple stretching exercises.
She is actively and purposefully engaging her body. And for the language learner listening to this, Lily's routine introduces essential vocabulary related to the human body and wellness.
Words like stomach, stretch, health.
Exactly. It provides a rich, tactile set of verbs for the A1 student to absorb.
We also see this clear division in their breakfast choices.
Because Tom is rushing.
Always rushing. He tells Lily his only morning exercise is running to the coffee machine.
Which I think a lot of people can relate to.
Definitely. He usually just has cold cereal with milk because it is fast. Or, if he is in a real hurry, he grabs a granola bar and literally runs out the door.
Notice the grammatical function the source material is deploying right there.
With the adverbs.
Yes. Tom's rushing allows the text to introduce adverbs of frequency in a highly natural way.
He usually has cereal, or he grabs a bar if he is in a real hurry.
It sets up a stark contrast to Lily's deliberate pacing.
Lily says breakfast is her favorite meal. She actually takes the time to cook a fresh omelet with spinach and tomatoes paired with green tea.
The text is methodically building two distinct characters while feeding the listener essential vocabulary for food.
We really get a clear picture of who they are before they even start working.
Which brings us to their work setups.
The physical environments where they operate are just as different as their breakfasts.
Lily works from home most days.
She sits down at her desk around 8:30 a.m., and the very first thing she does is write out a highly organized to-do list.
Noting everything she needs to finish that day.
She is completely mapping out her workflow before she even checks a single email.
We are looking at reactive versus proactive behaviors here.
That's a great way to put it.
Lily dictates her day by creating that structure. She decides what is important.
Whereas Tom has a traditional commute. He leaves his house at 8 a.m. and takes a 30-minute bus ride to the office.
Though he actually uses that transit time reasonably well.
He does. He mentions that he listens to an English podcast or reads a book.
It's a nice little meta-reference in the transcript to the learning channel itself.
Very clever. So he arrives at the office at 8:30 a.m., says hello to his colleagues, and then the morning grind truly begins.
Tom describes his first 2 hours as incredibly busy.
Entirely consumed by answering nonstop messages and talking on the phone.
Tom lets his inbox dictate his morning.
Highly reactive.
Exactly. It is a very reactive way to start the workday, constantly responding to external demands rather than following a personal to-do list.
But regardless of whether you are proactively organized at home like Lily or putting out reactive fires in the office like Tom, both characters hit the exact same physiological wall mid-morning.
The famous 11.0 a.m. wall.
The transcript notes that around 11 a.m., both of them start feeling hungry and realize they need a break.
There's a great moment of levity here that breaks up the grammar lesson.
Lily explains how she takes a brain break. Because she works from home, she leaves her computer and goes out to her garden to play with her dog, Buddy.
But Buddy is an incredibly lazy dog.
So lazy. Lily throws a ball and Buddy just looks at it and then goes right back to sleep.
Tom laughs and says Buddy sounds exactly like him in the morning.
It's a very cute moment.
And beyond just being a charming story, this anecdote serves a vital psychological purpose for the learner.
How so?
Well, the listener has been absorbing heavy vocabulary about work, commuting, and office technology. Shifting the focus to a lazy dog gives the learner's brain a momentary rest.
Well, that makes sense.
It allows them to process simple, familiar verbs like play, throw, and sleep before jumping back into the structure of the workday.
So after their respective breaks, they work until about 1:00 p.m., which brings us to lunchtime.
Once again, their choices highlight their different approaches to energy management.
Tom brings a lunchbox with leftovers. Today, it is microwave pasta his wife made for dinner the night before.
It is easy and convenient.
Lily, staying true to her health-conscious routine, makes a fresh, light salad.
She gives a very specific reason for this, too.
She does. She keeps it light, specifically to avoid feeling sleepy in the afternoon. She is already planning ahead for her energy levels.
The source text has established a very predictable rhythm for the learner at this point. I do this, you do that. I eat this, you eat that.
Setting up expectations.
Right. But a good pedagogical tool knows when to disrupt a pattern to check for comprehension.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because Tom's lunch break does not go smoothly.
Not at all.
The transcript includes a story about an embarrassing workplace mishap Tom experienced just the day before. Tom admits he was very busy at work, so he decided to eat his leftover pasta at his desk while typing on his computer.
A classic and often dangerous attempt at modern multitasking.
Lily immediately warns him that he should focus on his food. But Tom explains that he was looking at his screen, not his lunch.
He reached blindly for his fork.
Without looking, instead of picking up his fork, he accidentally picked up his USB flash drive.
Oh no.
He tells Lily that he almost put the USB drive right into his mouth.
So gross.
He was sitting there wondering why his pasta felt so hard.
And right at that exact moment, his boss happened to walk by, saw what he was doing, and just shook his head.
It is so embarrassing.
But what is brilliant about this specific anecdote for an A1 learner is the use of sudden contrast.
Because it breaks the routine.
Exactly. Up until now, the listener has been lulled into a false sense of security with predictable vocabulary. Suddenly, Tom's narrative breaks the pattern with an unexpected error.
The vocabulary shifts abruptly from food items to office supplies in a totally bizarre context.
It forces the listener to actively engage and test their comprehension of the words. If they aren't paying attention, the sentence makes no sense.
Well, why is he eating a USB drive?
Right. It perfectly validates Lily's advice that taking a real break and focusing on your food is essential for workplace sanity.
It is a great test of listening skills. Lily just laughs at him and says, Tom, you really need to take a real break.
How many of us have eaten lunch, staring at a screen, completely disconnected from what we are actually consuming?
But too many of us.
After that mishap, the source looks at their afternoon workflows.
Tom's afternoon is locked into meetings. He talks about having Zoom calls and face-to-face project planning sessions.
It is highly collaborative and clearly exhausting.
Which perfectly explains why Lily's afternoon routine is structured so differently.
Because she controls her schedule at home.
Yes, she reserves the specific window of 2:00 p.m. to 4:00 p.m. purely for creative work.
She writes scripts, edits videos, and researches new topics.
She has identified those 2 hours as her peak creative time, protecting them from outside distractions and administrative tasks.
She knows her own rhythms perfectly.
But eventually, the workday has to end. For Tom, the end of the day is an incredibly abrupt event.
We're talking about the 5.30 sprint.
When the clock hits exactly 5:30 p.m., Tom shuts down his computer immediately. He literally says, "Goodbye, office," and makes a rapid exit.
Lily even laughs and points out how fast he is at leaving.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
We are seeing two very distinct methods for creating psychological boundaries between work life and home life.
both characters actively manufacture these boundaries, they just execute them differently.
For Lily, who works from home, that boundary requires a physical action.
She shuts her laptop and goes for a long walk.
That walk serves as a transition period. It is a way to mentally leave the office even though her physical location hasn't really changed.
Because her home is her office, she has to artificially create that commute to clear her head. It is a necessary ritual.
For Tom, the boundary is leaving the actual office building, but he follows it up with heavy physical exertion.
He goes to a crowded gym 3 times a week.
He mentions that even though it is busy, it feels good to move his body after sitting at a desk all day.
On the days he doesn't go to the gym, he does grocery shopping.
Both characters are purposefully changing their environment and their activity level to signal to their brains that the professional day is officially over.
That intentionality carries over into their evening wind-down activities, too. We see the exact same personality traits shining through,
Lily cooks a healthy dinner.
specifically mentioning fish and steamed vegetables. Then, she relaxes by reading a mystery novel,
She also takes time to write in a journal.
listing 3 things she's grateful for every single day.
It is a highly mindful evening routine that aligns perfectly with her morning stretching and her organized to-do list.
From a language perspective, this section expands the beginner's vocabulary into the realm of hobbies, nutrition, and states of mind.
It moves beyond just the mechanics of working and commuting.
Tom's evening is much more focused on passive relaxation. He loves Netflix.
He usually unwinds by watching 1 or 2 episodes of a series, or he might play video games for an hour.
It is his preferred method of decompressing after all those reactive Zoom calls and emails.
This naturally leads into their bedtime cycles, bringing the whole night owl versus early bird theme full circle.
Yes, the final contrast. Lily, true to form, tries to be in bed by 10:00 p.m. She reads for 20 minutes and is reliably asleep by 10:30.
Tom is shocked by this, telling her she really is an early bird.
Because Tom, despite his painful mornings, usually stays up until midnight.
He tells Lily that he enjoys the quiet of the night, but he freely admits that he always regrets staying up so late when his alarm goes off at 7 a.m.
He is fully aware of the negative consequences, but the habit is deeply ingrained.
Lily points out that this is a cycle.
But she adds a very empowering thought. She notes the beauty of a routine is that it is yours, and you can change it if you want.
You are not locked into being a tired night owl forever if you want to make a shift.
Stepping back from the narrative of Tom and Lily, We can really appreciate the underlying pedagogical strategy functioning throughout this entire transcript.
The text brilliantly frames the grammar lesson around these relatable, contrasting lifestyles.
By doing so, the characters are naturally forced to use the simple present tense repeatedly.
I wake up, I eat, I work, I walk the dog.
The grammar is embedded in context rather than isolated on a whiteboard.
Because they are constantly contrasting their habits, I do this, but you do, that the repetition feels completely natural to a normal conversation.
It doesn't feel like a forced drill for the listener.
For an A1 or A2 beginner, context is everything. Attaching the verb to a vivid mental image like Tom almost eating a USB drive or Lily's dog ignoring a tennis ball makes the language stick in the long-term memory far better than rote memorization ever could.
The brain remembers stories.
Exactly. Not isolated grammar rules.
And the source material finishes with a great piece of audience engagement to solidify that learning.
The hosts in the transcript directly ask their listeners to practice right then and there.
They ask the audience to leave a comment using the structure I plus a verb to describe one thing they do every single day.
They give examples like, I drink coffee, or I walk the dog, or I practice English.
It is a direct call to action. It transforms the listener from a passive consumer of a story into an active participant in the language.
They have to immediately synthesize what they just heard and apply it to their own life.
So what does this all mean? When we look at this transcript as a whole, it reminds us that whether you are a snooze button hitting night owl like Tom, or a disciplined bed-making early bird like Lily, our daily routines are the literal building blocks of our lives.
They define our energy, our productivity, and our boundaries.
And beautifully, as we see in this educational transcript, those very same mundane routines are the perfect universal starting point for learning how to communicate in a brand new language.
This raises an important question, one that goes beyond just grammar and gets into human behavior.
The source material ends with Lily noting that a routine is yours, and you can change it if you want.
You have the power to alter your daily script.
I want to leave you, our listener, with this final thought to mull over today. Imagine if you completely adopted a totally opposite daily routine tomorrow.
If you're at a Tom, imagine waking up at 5 a.m. sharp without an alarm.
Swapping your cold cereal for a spinach omelet.
And trading your late-night Netflix binge for a gratitude journal.
If you forced yourself into that opposite routine, would it fundamentally change your personality over time?
Or would your true nature eventually rebel and force you right back into your old habits?
That is a fascinating thing to think about. Are we the creators of our routines, or are our routines just a reflection of who we inevitably are?
Think about that the next time your alarm goes off.
Or the next time you reach for the snooze button. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Let's Talk English transcript. We will catch you next time.